From EWTN News Nightly in Washington, D.C., I'm Brian Patrick with an EWTN special report. The Supreme Court has just ruled in favor of Hobby Lobby and Conestoga Wood in their challenge of the Health and Human Services contraception mandate. We have our EWTN News team out in the field right now with coverage. Of course, this ruling has very significant implications. EWTN and other religious organizations have challenged the HHS mandate. Health and Human Services has mandated that all employers offer contraception and in some cases abortifacients to their employees free of charge. However, this was challenged by a number of organizations. This case is truly significant today. Hobby Lobby is a Christian-owned company, and the Supreme Court has ruled in favor. Let's go to the Supreme Court, where Laura Cole has more on the decision and reaction to it. Laura?
Well, I'm with Irina Grossu right now with the Family Research Council. Irina, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, what does this mean now?
We won! It means that we don't have to sacrifice our own consciences to provide health care for our employees. It means that people won't lose their jobs over this. It means that they're going to be fined in order to provide health care. So people don't have to choose between their consciences and health care.
What does this mean going forward for the country?
It means that nonprofit and for-profit corporations, especially family-owned businesses, won't be forced to provide abortion-inducing drugs as part of their health care.
What does this mean for everybody who came out here today? Obviously, there's two sides here. It's a heated crowd. You guys have been chanting Hobby Lobby. What does this mean now for everybody out here today?
It means that religious freedom won today, which is an amazing, amazing win for America. It means that we still believe that people should have the right to hold whatever beliefs and not be forced by the government to go against their consciences.
Irina, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Brian, you know, one of the things out here for you guys to realize, there's probably, I would say, several hundred people out here. The two groups are divided. It's quite loud. But this is a huge win for the pro-life community today, as you can imagine. I'm now being joined by Melissa. Come on in. Sorry, guys, we're live TV. I'm now being joined by Melissa Moscala from the Catholic University of America. Can you just kind of tell us from your perspective what exactly this means for the pro-life community?
This is really a great victory to show that people can follow their consciences in their places of work. That's what this is really all about. And so it means that the Greens, who are a devout Christian family, the owners of Hobby Lobby, and the Mennonite family that owns Conestoga Woods, that they are not forced by the government to pay for abortion-inducing drugs in their health plans. This is just a great victory for the pro-life movement in that regard, and for religious freedom more broadly.
When you talk to some of these groups out here, this has been a really tough decision and a tough way to have to go about what they have to do next, having to say, if this doesn't happen, what are we going to have to do? What's kind of been your sense from the community?
Well, it seems that we were all very hopeful that we would win this. It just seemed like such an obvious case of infringement on First Amendment rights, and with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the real question was, will the Religious Freedom Restoration Act cover a corporation? And from what I've seen on the Supreme Court blog, it looks like they have limited this to closely held corporations, meaning corporations that are relatively small, where the owners or the family members are really playing a vital role. So you're not talking about one of these huge kind of impersonal corporations. You're talking about one where it's really plausible to say that the beliefs of the owners actually have something to do with the way the business is run.
And when you kind of saw the reaction, everybody out here, when they just started screaming, what was that excitement like for you?
Well, it was a huge relief, I have to say. I was really praying for this decision and had enough hope in our constitutional process to think that it would come out. But what an incredible rush of excitement in the victory, really for all of America. Even people who claim to be on the other side, I think they just don't understand. We stand for everybody's religious freedom, not just the people of those that we agree with.
Are people with that push for religious freedom these days, are they kind of being segregated out and almost made to be bad people at this point?
Well, what's funny is that the twisting of it, in the sense that they're saying that the employer is imposing their religious beliefs on the employee, but really the opposite is what's going on. It's the government that is imposing a particular ideology about what it means to be happy in terms of sexual liberation, sexual expression, sexual freedom on lots of people who don't want that. If you look actually at what women really want, the ability to engage in whatever kind of sexual conduct you want free of consequences is really not up there on the list. Women much prefer to, for instance, have a company where they are respected in their role as wives and mothers if they choose that role. The push for government-funded contraception has actually been very bad for women on so many fronts because it has changed the incentives, and so businesses, they don't have to actually, for instance, have flexible policies that allow women to be mothers and combine that with their work. They just say, well, look, hey, we give you contraceptives, so now you're going to have to accept deployment on the same terms as a man. And women would actually prefer to be treated in their difference, in their capacity to be mothers. That's an important aspect.
Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Brian, out here, as you can imagine, there's a lot of yelling. You probably can hear it coming through. But now a number of women here are getting up and speaking at the podium to talk about, not just the side, the pro-life side, but also the pro-choice side is allowed to speak out here today. But there are a number of people that are very excited about this because they've waited a long time. And the pro-life community, this is a win for them because so many times they feel that they lose here at the Supreme Court. So while there are a number of people that felt they would win today, there are also people out here that really weren't quite sure. In fact, right now I am being joined, and forgive me that I don't know exactly who this is. Please introduce yourself to me.
I'm Charmaine Yost from Americans United for Life.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us. What does this mean, do you think, for the broader pro-life community?
This is one of the biggest wins for religious freedom that we've seen in a very, very long time. This is a historic moment for all Americans. The Supreme Court has said that the federal government cannot force people to fund life-ending drugs against their conscience. It's a very decisive win. It's a victory for common sense, and we're really, really thrilled today.
What's kind of been your sense from the pro-life community? Did they really think they were going to win because they lose so many times at the Supreme Court?
We've been really holding our breath because particularly after we saw a loss in the upholding of Obamacare last summer, when you go in front of the court, you never know exactly how that decision is going to come out, how narrowly they're going to construe it, how they're going to decide to cut things. But this time they have really come down on the side of freedom and on the side of what are bedrock core American principles of religious freedom.
There are a number of people up here talking today. The fact that this many people have gathered, what does it say about the pro-life community in general?
Well, it says that we're animated. We've got momentum. We're moving forward. I think, particularly with the 40th anniversary of Roe this year, that there were people who were feeling a little bit discouraged. But our message to them is we are still in this game. We're still moving forward. Freedom of conscience is a bedrock American value, and that's something that the Supreme Court actually, reaffirmed today. And people should be encouraged by that and be excited about moving forward in the pro-life movement. And I think you see that. I'd say we're winning the rally wars today, and that's exciting too.
Will there ever be a time where both sides are able to come together, do you think?
Well, we ought to be able to come together on an issue like this. Freedom of conscience cuts across the board. And the important thing for people to understand about the Hobby Lobby case is that the Hobby Lobby did actually provide contraceptive coverage to their employees. What they objected to was being forced by the federal government to provide coverage for life-ending drugs, because this administration has moved from choice to coercion to forcing private businesses to comply with their political agenda, and that's what this was.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Brian, again, a major decision out here. Jason Calvi still inside the Supreme Court. We have not seen him yet, but I'm going to toss it back to you in the studio.
All right, Laura Cole outside the Supreme Court. Jason Calvi is in the courtroom. He's going to break this down in its entirety for us. We know that it was a 5-4 decision in favor of Hobby Lobby. This is the first time that the High Court has ruled on this particular issue. And I noticed that some of the folks, Dr. Muscella, talking with our Laura Cole, had indicated that it's somewhat restricted, that the fact that the owners of Hobby Lobby in Conestoga Wood are really, they are owners whose beliefs really influence the way their company does business. So that's kind of the restriction. What implications will this have on the EWTN challenge and other nonprofit challenges? I think when you look at the fact that this is really dealing with owners whose beliefs influence the way they conduct business. I'm sure that that's going to have some carryover to these other cases. Michael Warsaw, our CEO of EWTN, will be joining us tonight for reaction. He'll tell us about EWTN's a request for emergency relief because this mandate goes in effect tomorrow. So we have all bases covered for you starting at 6 Eastern here on EWTN News Nightly, a complete breakout of the ruling, reaction, and how do we move forward. For EWTN News Nightly, our entire team, I'm Brian Patrick in Washington with an EWTN News special report.